Today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available next week on the 220th General Assembly website, which is located at pcusa.org/GA220. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today's panelist is Ken Hockenberry. Ken serves as the pastor of Beulah Presbyterian Church in Louisville, Kentucky, and as State Clerk of Mid-Kentucky Presbytery. I'd like to welcome you this afternoon, Ken, and thanks so much for being with us.
Well, you're very welcome. Glad to be here. Friends, I want to thank you all for signing in. I'm pretty impressed that there are 70 people signed in to this webinar, and this is my first one, so I hope it goes well for everybody. I'd like to thank you all for your service to the General Assembly and to Jesus Christ and during your work, and this is included your work as a delegate or a commissioner to the General Assembly. Most of us are familiar with parliamentary procedures and Robert's Rules of Order. We use these in every council, what we used to call governing bodies, and we now call councils of the church, at session meetings and presbytery, synod, and of course at General Assembly meetings. And we'll be using these same procedures in our General Assembly committee meetings. Remember, these will take place Sunday evening through Tuesday or Wednesday during our week-long meeting when we're all together at General Assembly meeting in Pittsburgh. Several items of business will be referred to each General Assembly committee, and your committee is responsible for taking action on each item, and that's important to remember. Your actions you take in your committee will be in the form of a recommendation to the entire General Assembly when you all are meeting in the large plenary meeting. This is really important for us all to remember, because many of us who serve on sessions or at presbyteries are used to acting on actual items of business rather than making a recommendation for or to some other body to take action. So we're making recommendations in our committees to the entire General Assembly, the large plenary meeting. It's helped me over the years to think of this as each committee is asked to write a one-sentence recommendation to the General Assembly about an action the committee wants the General Assembly to take regarding an item of business. You all are working to write a one-sentence recommendation. And I have kind of a silly example for us to try. Let's say your General Assembly committee receives item number 123, and it's an item of business requesting that all commissioners and all advisory delegates wear a University of Kentucky blue shirt on Saturday morning during the plenary, the big group meeting on Saturday. That's the request. Now, one of you on the committee, like me, you're a good University of Kentucky fan, and you are all for that request. Everybody should wear blue on Saturday. Now, some others of you, though, you are Syracuse fans, and you'd rather everyone wear orange that morning rather than blue. And then there are some of you on the committee who feel this is a silly matter, that the committee should not waste its time. People should be able to wear whatever color shirt or blouse they want to wear on Saturday, and the GA should take no position in this matter. You are the I say no group. So you're at your committee meeting, and item 123 comes up, and your committee is going to read about it, and you're going to hear various forms of advice from others on this matter, and now it's time for the committee discussion and debate. Several hands go up, and one of you, a UK fan, raises your hand, and you're recognized by the moderator, and you say, I move the item be approved, item 123 be approved. Now, technically, remember, your motion is to recommend approval of item 123 by the entire General Assembly. This is your one-sentence recommendation to the entire General Assembly. And so debate begins, and people are discussing back and forth this item. And another person, the Syracuse Orangeman fan, wants to change this. So this person is recognized, and this Syracuse Orange fan says, I move to amend the recommendation. I want to strike the word blue and insert the word orange. And then someone seconds that motion. Now, one other important piece of information here is that during General Assembly committee meetings, motions like this need to be in writing. And what we use to help with that, we call committee motion forms. Now, these forms are available from the committee parliamentarian in the room. Each committee has an assigned parliamentarian which will help you. Here's a copy of what the form looks like. This helps us keep a good paper trail of all motions, just in case there is a desire later for a committee minority report. The standing rules of the General Assembly require that any items to be put in a minority report must have come up for discussion and debate during the committee meeting, and this helps us keep a paper trail. So that's what the form looks like, and you'll be familiar with them during your committee time at General Assembly. Okay, so let's say the motion to amend, we'll call it the Syracuse Amendment, that comes up, and debate is winding down, and that matter is going to come to a vote. And the committee votes on the amendment, and most of the votes and the final votes are counted. That's another important matter. All votes like this are counted, so the moderator of the committee has a good count. And let's say, for our example, that this motion fails. The Syracuse motion fails, and which therefore means we're back to the main motion to wear the UK blue. So there's more debate. And now this third person is recognized by the moderator and says, you know, I think everyone should wear what they want to wear on Saturday, and this person speaks passionately against the whole matter. So then it's time to vote, and the vote is on the motion to recommend approval of this item. And then let's say, for our example, that motion is defeated. The motion to wear UK blue is defeated. A majority of the committee members say no. Now, even though the action before the committee was defeated, the committee still has to bring some recommendation on each item of business to the entire General Assembly. So in this case, it would likely happen that another motion would be made. I move we recommend that the Assembly disapprove item 1, 2, 3. And most likely this motion would be approved, and that one-sentence recommendation would be sent to the larger General Assembly to vote on during the plenary meeting. Now, of course, there are other possible outcomes besides this silly example I proposed. Other recommendations that your committee can bring to the entire General Assembly. You can recommend approval of another item. We'll call it number 456. Vote. You can recommend approval of that. You could also recommend approval with amendments or approval as amended. And you can, or you can vote to approve with comment, just a brief word or comment your committee would like to make to the larger body. You could also recommend that an item be disapproved, as we did in our UK blue example, or you could recommend an item be disapproved with comment, again, a brief word you'd like to bring to the larger body. Now, some items coming before your committee you may feel need more work, or they need more review by another entity of the church. And so you might recommend that the General Assembly refer a particular item of business to another entity and then ask that group to report back later. So they could refer it rather to the Committee on the Office of the General Assembly or the General Assembly Mission Council for study or review, or report back to the next General Assembly meeting we anticipate in 2014. Let me also say that each General Assembly committee is assigned a committee parliamentarian. That's what I'll be doing, and many of us at the General Assembly meeting. The stated clerk asks us to help in this way, and we are all ready and willing to help you with these procedures and with motion forms, and we're there to help you get your work done. So we hope you will hit the help button there and ask us for any assistance we can give. I also want to encourage you all to look at an item on PC Biz in the resource section. The item is Parliamentary Procedures in the Presbyterian Church USA. This was by Mary Ann Wolf, and it's an excellent resource, and you can find it listed there. And of course, the main page for the 220th General Assembly meeting. There are lots of resources available to you there as well, and we hope you'll make use of them.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ken. That's a really helpful overview. And at this time, I think we're going to go ahead and take a few questions that we've received. And as a reminder, any questions that we don't get to now will be answered by email within the next day. So feel free to go ahead and post those as well, even as we move along. So the first question we're gonna have is, what about these motion forms? I've never heard of these before. Can you say a little bit more about their importance?
Sure. That's true. Most of us don't use these motion forms in other councils of the church, certainly not at session. Sometimes we use something similar at presbytery meetings. Robert's Rules does ask that motions be in writing. So this is one way we're fulfilling Robert's Rules. It also helps the committee recorder and the committee parliamentarian, the moderator, and the vice moderator keep track. Sometimes things get pretty rushed along during a General Assembly committee meeting. There's lots of different motions to amend or to substitute or to refer, and having this all in writing helps us. These forms are also, you have to write, fairly hard on them, and 4 copies are made as you write it. So a copy goes to each member of the leadership team. It just helps us keep a good paper trail and follow the business. As I also said, if your committee wants to do a minority report, then it's very, very important that we have those motion forms in writing.
Actually, Ken, you just mentioned minority report, and can you just say a little bit more about minority reports and what that is?
Is sometimes a significant minority of a committee will disagree with the majority position of the committee. And so what you are allowed to do, of course, under Robert's Rules and under the standing rules, is to prepare a minority report. And we have people ready and willing to help you prepare that report. The moderator of the committee has to verify that the item you are bringing in your minority report did come up during the committee meeting. And that's another reason for those motion forms. What happens in minority reports is when it comes to the larger body, the General Assembly meeting, this comes kind of as what we call a substitute motion. It's really just a motion to amend, but it's in a kind of a larger form of the motion to amend. What we do at the General Assembly meeting proper is the moderator calls for any amendments to the main committee report, the main motion. Those amendments are debated. The moderator then calls for amendments to the substitute motion or the minority report, and those are amended. Both of those are considered then what we call perfected or made ready. The substantial debate then comes, should the substitute motion or the minority report be substituted for the main motion or the majority report? And that's where the Assembly gets into very good discussion and debate. And depending on the outcome of that vote, we proceed then with final approval. Don't worry, that sounds overwhelming, but there'll be lots of help there at the Assembly to help with that.
Ken, that was really helpful. What would be one maybe piece of advice you'd give when it comes to what are the best ways for folks who really are not comfortable with or have not had a lot of experience working with parliamentary procedures as to how they could prepare?
Okay. That one page, that one booklet of Mary Ann Wolf's is very readable. You can have that down in very, very short period of time. It's in a PDF file. You can go through that. I would also ask during your committee meetings, ask to talk with the parliamentarian during breaks, particularly if there's something you want to see happen that you're not seeing others doing. You think it's all of this, try to remember, friends, is we are trying to discern Christ's will for the church, and we are using parliamentary procedure to help us to that end. Very, very vital that we all remember that. There are lots of other stated clerks, people like me, presbyteries and synods at the Assembly who have worked for many years with parliamentary procedures, and we could help. There's also the new booklet that the National Association of Parliamentarians have written, and that is Parliamentary Procedures in Brief. You can sit down and read through that, just a few chapters, and that'll give you a very, very good understanding of the basics of this procedure.
Ken, thank you so much for sharing this overview, and we just really appreciate your time.
Well, you're very welcome, Andrew, and thank you all for tuning in.
All right. I just once again want to thank all of you for joining us today online, and immediately following this webinar, you're going to be asked to complete just a brief survey, just 3 questions asking you about your experience of today's webinar. We encourage you to take a few moments to complete that survey. We really appreciate that feedback, and that's we're really wanting to make sure we're offering the best possible training tools to prepare you for the upcoming General Assembly gathering meeting. Next week, we will actually be taking a week off. There's no webinar next week, but we will be back on Tuesday, May the 15th, with a presentation on committee leadership roles. And so we will be sending out a notification by email next week, letting you know about that, and also with information about how to register. Just thank you once again so much for being with us, and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. As usual, you can find videos from all previous webinars at the General Assembly website and the schedule for upcoming training materials that will be made available. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.